Welcome in, basketball fans, to NBA Now from Chat Sports. I'm your host, Jimmy Crowther of All Things Mavs, and today we will be talking all things Dallas Mavericks on today's edition of the Dallas Mavericks News and Rumors Roundup show. So let's dive right in. Now, the first story is going to contain some sensitive subject material with the latest on Kristaps Porzingis and the alleged sexual assault that occurred not too long ago in New York. Now, before I get into it, like I said, I just want to give a warning. If you don't want to hear it, if you're sensitive to the subject, please skip through the first minute or so of this video. Now, a woman came forward over a year and a half after the alleged assault that occurred on the same night as the ACL tear that Kristaps Porzingis suffered while he was playing for the New York Knicks. Now you ask, why did she come forward a year and a half later? Well, she told authorities that Porzingis promised to pay her $68,000 in, quote, hush money after the alleged assault, and Porzingis did not pay it and refuses to pay it. Now, a lot of details have come out from ESPN and Adrian Wojnarowski since this story has come to light, and I want to dig in to some of those. Now, the story says that there was a document that this woman came up with and that Kristaps Porzingis himself signed that promised to pay her the $68,000. Now, Porzingis' camp came out and said this was forged. It is not his signature. And one of the interesting details I found about that document is that Porzingis' first name was spelled wrong all throughout the document, which is interesting considering Porzingis allegedly looked through it and signed it and verified the entire thing, according to this woman. One thing that I think is important when we talk about this is that I don't want to give any opinions because we don't really know what happened that night. It's a he said, she said thing right now, and the authorities are looking into it. But one quote that I found very interesting from the NBA Players Association Executive Director, Michelle Roberts, was that, quote, and I want to get this quote right because it is super important. "We have been aware of these allegations for some time, have evaluated the accuser's claims, and, based on what is presently before us, stand with Kristaps." Now, that's some pretty definite language coming from the NBA and the NBA Players Association Executive Director. So it's comforting, it's good to hear. The only opinion that I am going to give on this entire situation is that it absolutely sucks. It sucks for the Dallas Mavericks, it sucks for the woman involved, it sucks for Porzingis, and it sucks for the NBA. It's tough. You know, sexual assault is not a fun thing that we have to deal with in today's culture, and I hope and I pray for everyone involved that this is not a true story and that it comes to light soon. Now, let's shift focus there. We're going to move from Porzingis into our next segment. But before I get there, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by the MyTV Choice app. This app lets you skip right through every single commercial for the rest of the NCAA tournament. So download it today at mytvchoice.com. Now, the Mavericks played the Philadelphia 76ers the other night and beat the Philadelphia 76ers without Luka Doncic. But what I found interesting was a quote that came from the reigning Rookie of the Year, Ben Simmons, before the game. He was asked, "Who do you think is the Rookie of the Year?" And he responded quickly, "Luka, for sure." Why? Same reason as last year. He's playing better. He went on to talk about Trae Young and the fantastic season he's had and whatnot, but why Luka is better. And I just want to say thank you, Ben Simmons. The reigning Rookie of the Year understands. He gets it because he has been playing better all season long. Now, I want to give credit to Trae Young. I think he's had an incredible year, more like an incredible half of the year. And he's closed the gap. I'm not denying that. He has closed the gap. But let's think of the gap that Luka Doncic created between him and the rest of the rookie class as the Grand Canyon. And what Trae Young has done is filled up a couple buckets of water and poured it into the Grand Canyon. And that's about as much as he's filled the gap. Because Luka Doncic is the better player, has been the better player, and likely will be the better player, and deserves the Rookie of the Year award. But I don't want to just give you my opinions. Let me give you some stats on that as well. Now, among all rookies, of course, we're not just comparing Luka and Trae. Among all rookies, Luka Doncic is first in total points. He's first in points per game. He's second in rebounds per game. And that's including the big men like Marvin Bagley, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Wendell Carter before their injuries, of course. He's second in total assists. He's second in assists per game. And he has 7 triple-doubles. Now, he's also doing this in 100 less minutes than Trae Young and in 7 less games played due to injury, rest, whatever it might be. He's doing this every game. Every time he steps onto the court, he does something incredible. And I think the NBA has just taken that for granted, and that's why they're all of a sudden clinging to Trae Young. Luka Doncic deserves this award. He deserves it 100%. No matter how good Trae Young has been the second half of the season, Luka has been just as good, if not better, and definitely better all year long. Now from the whole Rookie of the Year race, we're going to talk about some free agency stuff that could be going down in Dallas. Let's talk about Goran Dragic. Now the Miami Heat and the Dallas Mavericks played the other night, and over 2,000 fans, I believe it was, from Slovenia flew in to watch Dragic and Luka Doncic play. Now, Luka was asked about Goran, his former Slovenian teammate, and here was his quote. He said, quote, "I would like to see Goran on my team. It would be much easier if he was on my team." And then the quote extended into the special night that Dragic had after he dropped a triple-double on the Dallas Mavericks. Now, let's think about that, Dragic on the Dallas Mavericks. How would that happen? Well, he has a $19.2 million player option this summer, which he can either opt into or opt out of with the Miami Heat. And at 32 years old, you'd have to think that he's at least leaning toward taking that guaranteed money, but we don't know for sure. Now, Luka and Dragic played on the same Slovenian national team, as I mentioned, and they won the 2017 European Basketball Championship together, which is super interesting. They already have that chemistry. They've already played together, so there's some connections there. Now, let's look at this season alone. He's only played in 30 games due to injury, which is concerning from a 32-year-old point guard, don't get me wrong. He'll be entering his 11th season in the NBA. One thing that's encouraging is that he can play off the ball. Justice Winslow has taken over the ball handling position with the Miami Heat, and Dragic has adjusted well. He's still averaging 14.1 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, and he's shooting nearly 36% from three, which is huge. Now, I would love to see Dragic in a Dallas Maverick uniform next season for the right price. But let me know what you guys think, and tell me who you think should be the Dallas Mavericks starting point guard next year. Should it be Jalen Brunson, who's had an incredible rookie season and is exceeding all expectations? Should it be Goran Dragic, who might be opting in or opting out? We'll see what happens with the Miami Heat. Or should it be someone like Kemba Walker, who the Mavs would likely have to throw a max contract at to lure away this summer? Now, along with Dragic, I want to touch on this little point. Goran Dragic allegedly texted Vucevic after the game against Dallas that Miami and the Mavs played in. And I think that is super interesting. The first rumor we ever heard about Nikola Vucevic and Dallas was from Brad Townsend in the Dallas Morning News back in February. And it said that the Mavs were going to, quote, set their sights on Vucevic in free agency this summer. Now, something that's really interesting to me is that Goran Dragic, Nikola Vucevic, and Luka Doncic all have the same agent, and that agent is Bill Duffy. Now, it doesn't mean they're for sure going to team up, but we've seen that NBA agents like to put their players together. So who knows? Now, let's look at his stats. He was an all-star this year. Let me just remind you of that. He averages 20.7 points per game, 12 rebounds, 35.9 from three-point, and he averages 1.1 blocks per game, excuse me. Now, being 28 years old, he would likely demand a max contract from the Mavs, and that's okay because he was an all-star. But they have a lot of cap space, and they'll still have a lot of cap space after they signed Kristaps Porzingis to a max deal, most likely. Now, one more little note about Vucevic is that the Magic are fighting for the playoffs in the East, so you have to think, if they make the playoffs, does he stay? Is he more inclined to stay? We'll see. He hasn't really said anything about what he wants to do this summer. Now, with Dragic and Vucevic in mind, let's look at a potential lineup and potential depth for the Dallas Mavericks next season. Let's say you put Dragic at the point guard position, Luka Doncic, Dorian Finney-Smith, he is a restricted free agent, but you got to think putting him in there for defense and rebounding. Kristaps Porzingis, who will be fully healthy next year, and Nikola Vucevic. That is a scary starting five on paper. And then you look at the backups. There are no slouches either. Jalen Brunson, like I said, one of the absolute standouts of this rookie class. JJ Barea will be hopefully healthy from a torn Achilles, and the Mavericks will likely re-sign him this summer. Tim Hardaway Jr. will bring a scoring punch off the bench. Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber in at the forward position and center position. Of course, you can also throw in guys like Justin Jackson, Ryan Broekhoff, whoever it may be. There's going to be a lot of talent for the Mavs to pull from this summer. Now, I want to remind you guys that today's show is presented by the MyTV Choice app, which will let you skip through each and every annoying commercial break this weekend as you sit down to watch the Final Four and the NCAA title game. Now, whether you're pulling for Jarrett Culver and Texas Tech, the Michigan State Spartans, UVA, or even the Auburn Tigers, just make sure you go to mytvchoice.com, Download that app today and get right through every commercial this weekend. Now, another note I want to start to look at. Dirk Nowitzki, who we all know and love for 21 years with the Dallas Mavericks. Is he really done? It's time to start talking about it because we're winding down the season. Now, the game against Philadelphia, Dirk's father flew in town to watch the game, and people say he flew in because this could be one of Dirk's final home games. Also, Steve Nash, his old teammate, flew into Dallas and posted an Instagram story with the caption, quote, "Flew back to Dallas to see Dirty at Swish41 hoop one last time." Now, we don't know if Dirk's been telling Nash stuff or is this just him speculating about him playing one more time. Who knows? But either way, it's kind of sad to think about. Now, Dirk has always said that he's going to let his body and his family decide what he does, whether he retires or not. And I still believe that is true. I don't think Dirk has made any final decisions yet. So we'll see. We'll wait and see for the summer. But let's remember that he missed about half of this season with that ankle surgery. And it kept him out. And then he had to get into a rhythm. And it took him a while. And he was struggling and sluggish and slow. But since the All-Star break, he's playing 20 minutes per game. He's still putting up 9 points per game. And he's shooting about 33% from three. So obviously it's not vintage Dirk. But he is still effective. So my question is, would he really just take this whole second half of the season to get comfortable the last 10 or 15 games and then walk away? Walk away next year when the Mavericks have a chance to make the playoffs with two of the best young guys on the team? I'm just not convinced. Now, next year, I don't think he's going to be playing a lot. If he comes back, I think it would be a limited role from 12 to 15 minutes, helping out Porzingis, helping out Luka, helping out whoever else comes on board. But I would love to see Dirk back. I want him back for one more season so we can make a playoff push for him. I don't want him to go out on one more season of tanking, if that's what you want to call this thing. But let me know what you think, okay? Tell me right now, should Dirk retire or should he return for his 22nd season in a Dallas Maverick uniform? If you think he should retire, type 1. If you think he should return, type 2 in the comment section below. As I said, I would absolutely love nothing more than to see Dirk in the playoffs one last time, and I think next year is the Mavericks' year to get back to the playoffs. So again, let me know what you think. Type 1 if you think Dirk Nowitzki should retire, and type 2 if you want to see him back for a 22nd season. Now, the final note I want to touch on today is the NBA tanking standings and where the Dallas Mavericks fall in the NBA draft lottery. Of course, they're currently tied for the 6th best odds with the Memphis Grizzlies, behind just the New York Knicks, Phoenix Suns, Cleveland Cavaliers, Chicago Bulls, and Atlanta Hawks. They're 3 games behind Atlanta for that 5th best odds. And the Pelicans are sneaking up on Dallas, and they're only a half game back for the 6th spot. Of course, Dallas must land in the top 5 to keep their pick and not let it go to Atlanta. And they have a 34.4% chance to land in the top 4. They also have an 8.2% chance to land the number 1 pick, which would, of course, mean Zion Williamson in a Dallas Maverick uniform. Now, the last 5 games of the season are against Minnesota, Memphis twice, the Phoenix Suns, and the San Antonio Spurs. So let's talk about them. Memphis, of course, is 2-8 in their last 10 games. They shut down Robert Covington, Derrick Rose, and Jeff Teague and just continue to slip. Now, the 2 games that'll be the most interesting are the back-to-back matchups against the Memphis Grizzlies, who, like I said, are tied with the Mavs for the 6th best odds in the lottery. Now, Memphis is not playing well. Of course, they're fighting for a spot in the lottery like we are. And these games could both be really ugly. Mavs could sit some players out. Wouldn't be surprised to see Mike Conley sit out for the Memphis Grizzlies. We're just going to have to see what happens there. Speaking of ugly, the Mavericks play the Phoenix Suns, who have the 2nd worst record in the NBA, on April 9th. And that'll be the last home game. I think the Mavs will go all out, try to win that game for Dirk Nowitzki, as it could be his final home game in a Dallas Maverick uniform. Lastly, the Mavs play the Spurs, who still have a lot to play for. Oklahoma City Thunder have obviously slipped pretty far and are sitting at the 8th seed, and the Spurs have just the tiebreaker advantage on them. The Spurs obviously would rather play the Nuggets than the Golden State Warriors in the first round of the playoffs, so don't be surprised to see the Spurs go all out against Dallas in their final game. Now remember, you can follow me at all_things_Mavs on Twitter with all your tweets, opinions, and comments. And then also follow me on my personal account at Jimmy Crowther, the number 3 at the end. But most of all, do not forget to download the My TV Choice app via mytvchoice.com to get you through all of the commercials throughout the rest of what should be an incredibly exciting Final Four, and NCAA championship. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.